Hey guys, it's Will. It's Hong Kong Cinema Appreciation Society. Welcome back to the channel. If you are new to the channel, welcome and thank you for finding us. I hope you liked this video. If you want to give us a sub, that would be hugely appreciated. Totally up to you. Also, jump in the comments. This is a list video. It is a ranking. Let me know your list. Let me know your ranking. Jackie freaking Chan, I've been promising this video forever. I finally watched Project A and Project A2 again. Those are the movies that were really holding me up on this list. I also recently watched Twin Dragons. I have the 88 Films release right here. Hell yes. Amazing release. And so this is my 15 favorite Jackie Chan movies ranked. A huge shout out to our patrons over on Patreon. I actually bought this with Patreon money. I bought the Fight Back to School set, which I also have right here if you want to see that, with Patreon money. So huge shout out to our patrons. Really and truly, this channel would not run the way it does without them. And if you want to go over there and you can see my exclusive reviews I did of Project A and Project A2, and there's a bunch of other stuff up there. This is going to be a Patreon early release video, but it won't be a wicked early release video. So this will be up on Patreon probably like 2 or 3 weeks before it goes on to YouTube. So are you ready? I've been threatening this list for probably like 2 or 3 years at this point, and it's finally here. I finally sat down and made the list. There are 2 movies I was very sad to leave off. Before we get into the top 5, I will tell you what those 2 movies are. And also, I know that the order of this list is really going to piss people off, okay? I already know that. But it's just for fun, and it's all personal opinion. This is not me saying these are the absolute best definitive, Jackie Chan movies. These are my personal favorite Jackie Chan movies, ranked in order, 15 of them. At number 15, I have Drunken Master 2. Already, you're probably infuriated because that seems really low for that movie. Why do I have that movie so low? It's a really interesting movie to me. At one point, that was my favorite Jackie Chan movie. It's a really phenomenal film. It's got, like, I said this when I reviewed the Warner Brothers release of this, the Warner Archive Blu-ray. Watching this movie it's like kind of surreal in a way. Not surreal, but like it's almost like this weird experience where like every single sequence in the movie is famous, at least from my perspective. This is a movie I've seen a buttload of times. And it's almost like, oh, okay, yeah, oh, I love this opening sequence. And then you get to the next one, you're like, oh, I forgot this one was next. You get to the next one, you're like, wait, what? Like, it's like it really is like listening to a greatest hits album from a band. It's just like classic famous sequence after classic famous sequence. The way it also relates to a greatest hits album is that watching it again, I realize it doesn't really feel like a coherent whole. It feels like all of these pieces about these characters in this world that do build to something, and it has this amazing climax and the very famous fight at the end with Ken Lo, which is freaking incredible. But it feels like really insanely disjointed in this almost like psychotic way where you're like, wait, what? This is still the same movie? What is happening right now? That kind of threw me off in a way. It was a really interesting rewatch of this film. I'm not trying to impugn this film. I know for a lot of people, this is their favorite Jackie movie. I do really have to emphasize, which you will notice as we go through this list, I am way more interested in stunts and in Jackie Chan's physical comedy and in like the storytelling of the films and like those fight scenes where he's combining like stunts and physical comedy and like props in the scene and stuff like that. That is all more interesting to me than like traditional old school martial arts fighting, which is another reason that this movie is kind of low on the list, is because that honestly, like, this movie has incredible fights in it, but that style of fighting that you see in this film is less interesting to me. I'm not a martial artist, and it's way more interesting to me to see the other stuff he does than it is to see that kind of stuff that he does. So at number 14, I have Drunken Master. So I have both the films on the list, but I have the films all the way down the bottom of the list. I really, really like Drunken Master. It's a very funny movie. The fight scenes, I like the fight scenes in this one more than in the second one. They're just bananas, and they're really innovative and really interesting. I like the choreography. I like the speed of them. I like the visual kind of silliness and the wit of them. I really like the character that he plays in the first one. I think it's a lot more believable that he plays that character at the age he is in the first one than when he's playing like T. Lung's son and like Anita Mui's stepmom. They're all like basically the same age. It's like kind of ridiculous. Obviously it's silly and it's fun, and I'm not insulting it, but the first one is like, in a way, it's like even though it's ridiculous and sillier in a lot of ways than the second one, it's like more believable because it's more convincingly goofy. But it's just a classic and phenomenal film, and the film that really like cemented his reputation as, you know, among the best of the best. At number 13 on my ranking of my 15 favorite Jackie Chan movies, I have Heart of Dragon from 1985, directed by Sammo Hung. I love this. I just really, really love this movie. I think that it's a really heartfelt, earnest, and very sweet character study of these two brothers and the frustrations that both of the characters feel and the difficulties that they're having going through life, with Jackie Chan as the police officer who wants to like get out of Dodge and like go and travel the world and see all these things, and Sammo Hung is his brother and he has a disability and he has to take care of his brother. But you can also see that the Sammo Hung character is very frustrated too, feeling like he can't take care of himself, that he's like letting his brother down in some way. I think that the relationship between the two of them is handled really, really well. I think Jackie and Sammo play it really straight. Like there's no sense in this movie of like making fun of the character with disabilities. I think they do a lot of justice to that character and to that relationship, and they're honest about the frustrations of it, but also the beauty of it as well. I love the final fight scenes in this. There's like an amazing car chase, and then there's like Jackie fighting Dick Y, and like amazing explosions and gunfighting, and like, and I think it's a really smart decision on the part of Sammo as the director to segment the film so that you have like an opening kind of like action scene that's like really silly and fun, and then you have basically drama for like whatever, an hour and 10 minutes with like the kind of simmering crime plot in the background, with a couple action set pieces, like there's a couple fight scenes within that, but then you really have this huge pileup of action at the end. And I think that works because you allow the drama to play out, you build your relationships with the characters, and then we get into Jeopardy and we kind of switch gears into like an action martial arts type of film, like a thriller almost. And you could enjoy that segment of the film while being emotionally invested in it because we've really developed a relationship with the characters. It is a great movie. And number 12. So number 12 was a movie I had a really difficult time ranking on my list of my 15 favorite Jackie Chan movies. I couldn't tell if I wanted to put it below or above Heart of Dragon and a couple other films. The movie is Dragons Forever. And this is a hard one for me to assess because some of this movie is like among my favorite stuff ever. The fighting at the end of this movie, that whole sequence in the factory, is like all-time classic, 10 out of 10, freaking awesome, and I love it. The scene on the boat is one of my favorite fight scenes ever. The scene in the bar is incredible. The bit with the three of them in the apartment when they're like, one of them comes in through the window and he's in the door, like Jackie's trying to hide them and he's like having a date and whatever. And then there's like the Three Stooges type of scene where they're fighting in the park. Like all that stuff is like 10 out of 10 classic to me. There are other bits of this movie I don't really care for that much. I don't really like the Jackie character in this movie. I don't really like the Yoon Bu character in this movie. And I know that those are like common criticisms. I know it's kind of like cliche to say that. I really like the Sammo Hung character in this movie. I think he's really interesting and silly, and I think Sammo plays him really well. But and I get what they were doing. They were trying to play against type. They were trying to do something different. Maybe they were fed up with doing the same stuff over and over again. I get it. The plot in this movie doesn't really matter. You could say that about a lot of Jackie's movies, that like it's, you know, there's like some bad guy and there's something, and they're Jackie and Sammo and Yoon Bu are unleashed, right? Like that is kind of, you know, the thing. But I don't I like it. Again, it's hard to assess because some of this movie is like 10 out of 10 perfection to me, and some of this movie is like I find a little bit tedious. So I kind of put it near the bottom. But again, there's no movie on this list that I don't love. That's why it's so freaking hard to rank them. Because how do you rank stuff where you love all of them? It's really, really, really freaking hard. If I hated all these movies, I'd be like, who gives a shit? I just like pick some random order. Why I agonized over this list for so long is I love these movies so much, all of them. It's really, it feels like, you know, it's like what they say about writing, right? When it's killing your babies or whatever, when you have to do rewrites and edits and stuff. Like, I almost feel like ranking any of these movies is like betraying my children. I'm being melodramatic, okay? I don't really feel like it's like betraying my children, but because I like Jackie Chan movies more than I like my children. Anywho, at number 11, I have Miracles, aka Mr. Canton and Lady Rose. I love this movie. It's a fantastic movie. I think it's a really underrated film. I think this has some of Jackie's best like French farce or like screwball style comedy scenes in it. There's some really, really great comedy in this. some of the best, I would argue maybe even the best camera work in any Jackie Chan movie ever. The crane shots, the steady cam, like the marriage of set design, blocking, camera work in this film is really astounding and fantastic. You could see Jackie like taking from old Hollywood and taking from Spielberg and other great filmmakers around the world, Kurosawa even, and like applying those filmmaking techniques to his style of cinema, and you know, the detail of the period piece stuff, and like it's a very charming film. I really like the characters. The sequence in the rope factory is one of the best stunt fight sequences, whatever you want to call it, in any Jackie Chan movie ever. Like, I love that sequence. It is so good. It's so entertaining. There's a lot of visual ingenuity in it. And it's just like a great movie in terms of pure entertainment. So next we have three films that I kind of think of together in some ways. And again, these were hard to rank. I knew I wanted to kind of put them together on the list. You'll see why when I go through them, because they came out at a similar time period. But at number 10 on my list of my top 15 Jackie Chan movies, I have Twin Dragons, which I just rewatched. So, you know, like, I came to Jackie Chan in the 1990s. That's when I became a fan. And this style of like 90s Jackie Chan movie, where you have the fighting, you have the silliness, you have the stunts, you have the persona of Jack. Although it's interesting because he's kind of playing different characters in that. He's playing this kind of like rough and tumble street criminal, and then he's playing this like upper class kind of like really well educated musician. But you still see that Jackie persona creeping through, right? And at this, I love the comedy in this movie. That it's so goofy, it's so silly. Maggie Chung, I think, is phenomenal in this movie and really grounds some of the sillier situations and makes it like much more believable and gives it more gravity. And Nina Lee Chi is great in this movie. Teddy is just absolutely ridiculously hysterical and cracked me up throughout the entire movie. Teddy Robin, he was just cracking me up, and just like the silliness of the humor in this film, I cannot overemphasize this. I just love, they really maximize the potential in this movie of having Jackie play two characters, where you get like all these sight gags and silly little comedy routines, and I just thought it was very funny, very charming characters. It's, again, this is a movie that is pure joy to me from front to back, and that's one of the things I love so much about Jackie Chan, is that even though I can kind of like analyze his films and break them down and talk about like storytelling technique, character, like whatever like that, where they fit in the history of cinema, at the end of the day, what I feel when I watch Jackie Chan movies is like the same pure joy that I felt when I first saw Jackie Chan movies like 26 years ago or whatever it was when I first started watching Jackie Chan movies. And that movie is a prime example of that. So Twin Dragons at number 9 on my list of my ranking rather, of my top 15 Jackie Chan films, I have Operation Condor. So this is the second Jackie Chan movie I ever saw. I believe this came out in theaters in the US in the summer of 1997. I saw this one in theaters. I took the bus to the mall with my brother to see it. And it's just so, I loved it then because it was so silly, but it had these amazing fights in it, and these amazing stunts, like the stunt with the giant platform and the scene in the hotel, when they're at a hotel in the desert, and like there's all these people coming and going and fighting and shooting, and like the craziness of the car chase in this movie is freaking incredible. And like, I really had never seen anything like that when I first saw this movie. And this, along with the first Jackie movie I saw, which I'll talk about in a second here, it just made me fall in love with his style, the way that he looks at cinema, comedy, stunts, like even like stuff like narrative and character, and like I just love it so much. And when 88 Films put out their release of this that had like the extended cut of the film on it, I hadn't seen that movie in probably about 7 or 8 years when the 88 Films release came out. Well, maybe like 6 or 7 years. But I was really coming back to it with like fresh eyes, and I loved it. I fell in love with it again. It was amazing. It's so silly. It's so fun. It's got this epic scale to it. It's got some really ludicrous stuff that you could not get away with in a million years now. That's really, really funny to watch. And to think that like that movie was just playing at the mall in 1997 and you could go and watch it, or even when it came out in Hong Kong in like 1991 or whatever. But I just love Operation Condor. It's just goofy and it's fun, and it has amazing stunts and action in it. Like I said, the car chase is just freaking incredible, and I love it. So at number 8 on my ranking of my favorite 15 Jackie Chan movies, I have First Strike, aka Police Story 4. This is the first Jackie Chan movie I saw. If I'm not mistaken, it came out in theaters in the US in January of 1997. I was 13 years old. I saw it because my friends had seen Rumble in the Bronx, and like, you got to go see this movie because Jackie Chan is awesome. So go and check out Jackie Chan. And I saw that First Strike, it came out. I knew it was the same dude who was in Rumble, and I was like, I got to see this movie. And I just fell in love. I mean, like, I'm a huge James Bond fan. I think First Strike is like arguably the James Bondiest Jackie Chan movie because he's like traveling all over the world and it's got this like super agent kind of spy type of thing to it. And he's in like former Soviet states, which was a big thing with 90s. This really feels like a 90s James Bond movie, right? And then it's got like the amazing snowmobile chase and the helicopter. It's got all these exotic locations. There's like the underwater fight. The thing with the ladder is like one of the most classic things. That blew my mind when I saw this movie. When I rewatched this movie recently, because I reviewed I have a digital copy of the Japanese version of this movie, and I reviewed that for Patreon. And it was such a joy to revisit, but I'd forgotten that the villain is like a really good character and has really interesting motivation. And when you finally meet the villain, the relationship between the villain and the Jackie Chan characters, it's really interesting. And I think this movie is more nuanced than its reputation, because I think its reputation is mostly dominated by discourse of the fact that it's very different from the first Police Story movies, that it leans way more into the silliness, that it's like more cutesy, that it's not as brutal, and all of that stuff is true. But I think that there's nuance and character and story elements in this film that get overlooked when people discuss it. And I really love this movie, and part of it is nostalgia, and part of it is that I rewatched it recently. I just think it's a really good movie. So at number 7 on my ranking of my top 15 Jackie Chan movies, I have Police Story 2. So if you watch this channel, if you know me, you know I love this movie. And there was a point at which there's a lot of movies on here that were at one point my favorite Jackie Chan movie because it changes so much. There's so much I love about this movie. I love the fighting. I love the freaking playground fight. I love that little fight in the restaurant, which when I did my list of my 5 favorite fight scenes, I put the restaurant fight, the breaking of the plates, and the breaking of the glass, and the freaking van just drives straight through the window. I really like the narrative of this film. I think it's really interesting that it starts with a direct continuation of the previous film, and then it introduces a new story. So you're trying to resolve a previous story while trying to deal with a new story. I think that's a really interesting and unexpected device, because with sequels, you tend to have one of the two. You tend to have either the direct continuation, or you tend to have that last story was resolved. Here's a new one with the same characters. This is like, here's the fallout, but oh shit, now we have to deal with this other thing too. And they're trying to put out multiple fires at the same time. And I think it's really interesting in this style of film to take on a narrative like that, where you have these kind of overlapping segments of it that adds complexity to the story. I think this is visually a really good movie. I love the stunt with the buses, the truck or the bus or whatever. Jackie's on top of the vehicle and he's jumping from one to the other and he jumps through the glass, and like, that's amazing. It's amazing. It's just, I love this movie. We could talk about it all day. It's been talked about for days and days in the past. I don't think I've ever done a standalone review of this movie. So maybe that's something I could do for Patreon. Let me know in the comments what you think about that. So that was Police Story 2. At number 6 on my list of my top 15 Jackie Chan movies, I have Winners and Sinners, released in 1983. If you watch this channel, you know that this is one of my favorite movies ever. Now, here's what I have to talk about with this movie. It's not a Jackie Chan movie. The reason I didn't put this in the top 5, that I felt like I had to leave it out of the top 5 while I was making this list, is it's really not a Jackie Chan movie. It was directed by Sammo Hung. The star of the movie is Sammo Hung. Jackie is kind of like a side character, and he has like a really great fight scene. Then he has an amazing stunt sequence with the roller skates and the cars, and like I freaking love that scene. But this movie is really, it's like a Sammo movie, and Richard is really like Richard. I'm trying to get it right. Frank Chang is always telling me I can't say his name, and I am always trying to say it right. Richard he's probably my favorite. I mean, if you don't count Jackie Chan, Richard is probably my favorite Hong Kong comedian. I just think he's like the funniest person in the world. He cracks me up just seeing his face, the mustache, the facial expressions, and this is maybe my favorite performance of his, in Winners and Sinners. He's so funny. And so Jackie Chan is in this movie. It's not really a Jackie Chan movie, but I love it so much that it would be dishonest to leave it off this list, because Jackie is a prominent part of the film, and this is my favorite Jackie Chan films list. So that was Winners and Sinners. So before we get into the top 5, I told you I was going to tell you 2 movies that was a bummer for me to leave off this list. One of them is Gorgeous. I just revisited this with the 88 Films release earlier this year. I forgot how much I loved this movie. Like, I loved that movie, and it was really hard for me to leave it off. I love the feeling of it. It's just such an earnest sweet romantic film. It kind of reminds me of Amelie. I think Shu Chi is amazing in that, in the lead role in that film. Tony Leung is really great in it. It has like a silliness and a quirkiness to it that's just really, really appealing to me. The Brad Allen fights are incredible, and I honestly almost left off Drunken Master 2 in favor of this movie. But I was like, Drunken Master 2 is like, I've seen it so many times, and it's like, my most recent watch of Drunken Master 2 didn't blow me away, but I kind of know in the back of my mind that it would be like kind of just a knee jerk and like dishonest to leave it off the list. Like I'd be doing it just to do it. Like if I'm really being honest with myself, but I just loved Gorgeous so much when I rewatched it, and it was hard to leave it off. And the other one is Mr. Nice Guy. I just really, really, really liked that movie, and I know it's not like one of the greatest, most classic movies ever made, but I love the charm of it, the silliness of it, the fight scenes. You know, it's directed by Sammo. It stars Jackie. I just think it's a really fun. It's like a perfect like comfort food popcorn type of movie where you had a bad day, you throw on Jackie Chan, you get a beer, you get some snacks, and you just watch it, and you don't worry about the bullshit that's happening in your life because you're happy watching the movie. So now we get into the top 5. Really hard to rank these movies, like really hard, because they're all among like my favorite movies ever made. At number 5, I have Police Story 3 / Super Cop. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, what's to say about this movie? It's freaking amazing. It is amazing. Stanley Tong directs the shit out of this movie. Michelle Yeoh is incredible. Jackie Chan is incredible. The way that they incorporate like kind of like gunfighting and more like international travel, espionage type of aspect into it. Jackie Chan is starting to internationalize, kind of moving towards James Bond type of thing, but not as full blown as in later films that he would do, like in First Strike and stuff. And I just like, this movie has really good serious stuff in it and really good comedy in it, and the way that Stanley Tong kind of moves between those tones really seamlessly. The ending stunt sequence is one of the greatest things ever put to celluloid, with the Michelle Yeoh and the, like, first of all, that car chase is freaking phenomenal, and then the thing with the motorcycle on the train and the whole train sequence, and then Jackie on the helicopter and the helicopter landing on the train. It's just like some of the greatest stuff ever put to film. And it's just, I mean, I've talked so much about this movie on this channel, and so many other people have talked so much about this movie so extensively. I'm kind of like, what do you even say about it at this point? I'm just looking over there to see where I was looking to see if my 4K set was easily available of the Police Story films, but I don't see it in the pile, so it's probably buried somewhere right now. But it's just a phenomenal, incredible, classic movie. It's one of those movies where I honestly feel like I like it more every time I watch it. And I've, in the past maybe 3 years, I've seen that movie like maybe 6 or 7 times. Like, I've seen it a lot, and I really, really love it. And I've been having like a little bit of a love affair with it recently. So it's at number 5. At number 4 on my list of, or my ranking, excuse me, of my 15 favorite Jackie Chan movies, Police Story. It was really hard to rank Police Story at number 4 because it feels like it should be higher, even though I know number 4 is really high. Especially considering, I'm sorry I'm drinking all this water. I'm getting so excited about these movies, and I'm talking so much about them. It's also late at night. I'm in the laundry room. I'm just thirsty, and I'm sorry, but we here, have a sip of your drink. I'll have a sip of my water. And we shall continue. Police Story. I mean, it's one of the most classic movies ever made. I think it's one of the most important action films ever made, in that it is an urban set action thriller with comedy elements, with gunfighting in it, that's like in a contemporary city, but that has amazing martial arts and stunts in it. Like, I really think this movie is the template for movies like The Protector and The Raid and Ong Bak, and like every other freaking movie, like the John Wick movies, like and I know that there's other innovators, right? I know that John Woo came along and did stuff, and I know that like so many people innovated within this genre, whatever you want to call it, but I really feel like this is that movie that detonated that bomb that led to 40 years worth of cinema. The final sequence is just absolutely freaking incredible. I think my favorite Jackie Chan stunt ever is the opening scene of this film with the bus. where he's hanging off the bus with the umbrella. And that is one of the greatest freaking, like, when I first saw this movie, I could not fucking believe what I was watching. Like, my jaw dropped, and I rewound it and I rewound it and I rewound it. I was like, this is the greatest fucking thing that has ever happened in human history. Like, we will never get beyond Jackie Chan hanging off a bus with an umbrella. Really good comedy in this movie. The glass breaking is incredible. It is the best glass breaking in the history of cinema. What else needs to be said? It's just one of the greatest action films ever made, action comedies, whatever you want to call it. And I really, really, really love this movie. I've seen it a shitload of times, and it was hard. It was really hard to rank these films. So at number 3 on my ranking of my favorite 15 Jackie Chan movies, I have Project A2. I think this is a hugely underrated movie. I think this is Jackie's best movie as a director in terms of having a complex narrative with a lot of characters, with a complicated tone, with a lot of like visual screwball comedy and physical comedy routines, but amazing stunts, amazing action. They just like the set design, the set decoration, the blocking visual design, camera movements. Like, this is really, really, really elite tier filmmaking. Like, this movie is so well made. It's freaking incredible. I joked after I watched this and when I did my review for Patreon that this is my favorite police story movie. Like, the plot of this movie to me feels less like a continuation of Project A than it does like a police story movie set 100 years before the other ones, because it's like this really good cop movie. And Jackie has like his gang of buddies. He's the head cop. They're around him. They're some of the same guys who were in the police story movies, right? And it's a kind of a similar, like, you know, there's like corrupt cops and like Uncle Bill is in it from the police story movies. And I'm like, this really feels like a period piece police story movie. The second half of this movie is like all in one day. And it's this huge sequence of events where you have Jackie like running into all of these characters. There's so many factions of characters in this film. It's so funny. I think that his best comedy sequences are in this movie, plus his best visual directing, plus these amazing fights, like the scene in that restaurant where they go to arrest the gang who was like previously considered untouchable. Obviously, the finale is absolutely freaking incredible. And just Jackie's performance is fantastic in this movie, and like, I can't say enough good things about this movie. In some ways, I really feel like this is his best movie. The one thing that it's lacking to me, which is why I put it at number 3 and not at 2 or 1, is that I think it doesn't have the unbridled, absolute, pure joy of some of his other films. As the only thing that is lacking in this film. The axe fight is freaking, it's like one of my favorite things ever in any Jackie movie. Like, it's just an amazing movie. And like, Rosamund Kwan is so damn good in this movie. The cast is incredible. It's such an interesting look at like Hong Kong and China and the British colonial government and how all these things intersect and how some people disagree on some things but agree on other things, and this really complicated like triangle of interests, and it's just a phenomenal movie. So that brings us into the top 2. If you are a Jackie Chan fan, or if you know me, if you watch this channel, you probably know what the next 2 are. At number 2 on my ranking of my 15 favorite Jackie Chan movies, Wheels on Meals. This is another one that was my favorite Jackie Chan movie for a while. Directed by Sammo Hung. It takes place in Barcelona, which is interesting because one of the things I love so much about Jackie Chan movies is they take place in Hong Kong. And here at number 2, I have one that doesn't take place in Hong Kong. But I love the shit out of this movie. And like, the fight at the end is absolutely freaking incredible. The Jackie Chan versus the Benny Urquidez fight. If you took that fight out of this movie, I would still love it. I wouldn't care, because what I love so much about this movie is the camaraderie of it, the charm of it, the goofiness of it, the relationship between Jackie's character and the Yoon Bi-yoo character, and them and the Sammo Hung character. It's just pure joy to watch. I love the humor of this movie. It is so silly. It is so funny. And like, Sammo is the private detective with the Jerry Curl wig, and like, and it's got a lot of really good little small fights in it. You know, it only really has that one huge set piece at the end, but it has like some small fights to keep you going throughout, like the stunt with the guys on the dirt bikes, and the scene where the Lola Foreigner character is like getting kidnapped and they're chasing after the guys on the street and stuff like that. And but I really like Lola Foreigner in this movie. I really like her character. I like the fact that they're drooling over her, like the Yoon Bi-yoo character and the Jackie Chan character kind of like she's very easy to look at. Obviously, if you've seen this film, they both fall for her, but she kind of like hoodwinks them. Like she's smarter than them. She's one step ahead of them. It's a really interesting character, especially for a female character in a Hong Kong movie at that time, to be one step ahead of the guys and to be like putting one over on them. Really interesting. I think she's a really good character. But really, to me, it just comes down to the goofiness and the earnestness and the charm and the sweetness of the film and the characters. And I just love it so much. And I know that like a lot of people, when they think of Jackie Chan, it's like, what are the best stunts? What are the best fights? Like, what are the most classic, sequences and stuff like that? But even though I had never seen stunts or fights like Jackie Chan does it, when I first saw a Jackie Chan movie, the thing that I consistently loved always throughout his films was him and his persona and his goofiness and his charm and his likability. And that's on full display in this film, as is the same quality in Yoon Bio and Sammo Hung. So at number 1, am I really freaking telling you my favorite Jackie Chan movie? Have I finally made a definitive decision on this? It's Project A. It has to be Project A. I couldn't pick anything else after rewatching this movie. Something similar happened with my list of my favorite fight scenes. I had a fight from Project A, and it was at the bottom of the list. And every time I revised the list and watched that scene again, it went up and up and up until it ended up at number 1. This movie is so damn good for so many reasons. It's perfect Jackie Chan. It's everything I love about Jackie Chan. It's goofy. It has amazing fights. It has some of the greatest stunts ever put to celluloid. It has that amazing central core of Jackie and Sammo and Yoon Bio, their relationship, their camaraderie, their goofiness. It has this totally like amazing blockbuster, like Spielberg style, massive genre. Like I when I rewatched this movie, I was like, is this, and let me know in the comments if you can think of anything else. Is this the first huge epic like tent pole genre film about Hong Kong specifically? Not made in Hong Kong, but about like historical China or anything like that. Like this movie is about British colonial Hong Kong. It's about Hong Kong culture. It's about creating a cinematic mythology out of the things that unify the people from Hong Kong that is different from mainland China. And I see a lot of Spielberg influence on this movie. It's such a big epic film. They're doing like miniatures when the pirate ships are blowing up, and like trying all these kind of old school filmmaking techniques, but bringing them into the 1980s. And it's taking like the old school martial arts film and it's saying, we're doing something else now. Like this feels like a landmark movie. Like we're doing something new. We're having these huge brawls with chaotic choreography where it's not just like the shape style fighting and like the like on the beat style kicking, but like people being thrown across the room and chairs being broken over their heads. And it's like these drunken brawls, but with this amazing choreography and these incredible, like when he climbs up the freaking flagpole, and then the fight in the clock, and then the fall from the clock tower. But then before that, you have like the bike sequence, which is freaking incredible. I love the bike. And then you have the Sammo and him fighting in that restaurant and like throwing the guys off the balcony and stuff. And like, I could talk about this movie until the end of time. I loved it so much when I rewatched it. I mean, there's like the Enter the Dragon homage, right? When they go to the island and there's like the boat trip, and then there's like Jackie's wearing like all black and he's sneaking around in this secret underground lair, and it's like very Enter the Dragon, but like the super goofy Jackie Chan version of it. And like when he peels off his freaking fake mustache is amazing. And the Dick Y fight, Jackie Chan versus Dick Y, and then Yoon Bio and Sammo Hung get involved too, and it's like 4 people fighting, and it's just everything that is great about Jackie Chan as a director, as a performer, as a comedian, as a fight choreographer, as a stunt choreographer, as an actor is on display in this film at like the highest level. And it really is like, to me, like this is the Jackie Chan movie. Like this is the blueprint for everything. Like leading up to this, he was experimenting different styles, doing a lot of old school martial arts stuff, but then doing like movies like Battle Creek Brawl, like trying to find his identity and who he was as a star, as a filmmaker, as a comedian, like all of these things. And in this movie, all of it just it's like the cement hardens. Like he takes it all and he puts it together, and it hardens into the identity of Jackie Chan, and everything we love about Jackie, he becomes in this film. But historical context aside, it's just an incredible movie. It's a great piece of filmmaking, and it's incredibly entertaining. It is pure joy. I cannot emphasize that enough. That is what I love about Jackie Chan, and that is the note that I will leave you on. His films bring me pure, unbridled joy, the way I felt when I was a kid and I would watch movies and I didn't fucking care about anything. And I was just so happy to be alive and witnessing these things that I just loved so much, that inspired me so much, that got me so excited about cinema. So my name is Will. These are my 15 favorite Jackie Chan movies ranked. Let me know what you think about the list. Give me yours, and we'll see you next time.